I call upon the spirit of the owl, messenger of wisdom. Welcome to the temple of the owl. Merry meet, seekers of knowledge, for I am Matzal, your host. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for listening on the Troubled Minds Radio Network, KUAP, Digital Broadcasting. Special shout out to all the Troubled Minds fam listening out there, and thank you guys. How you guys doing today? I'm sending love and positivity your way and just letting you guys know that you're loved. Today we're going to talk about, this is part 2 of sensory deprivation. So we kind of talked about this stuff before, but we're going to get a little bit deeper and talk about different kinds of sensory deprivation. So as always, these are just ideas to help you live a magical life. Make you guys think about things differently. So just take the information and do what you want with it. These are just ideas. No truth. Just some things to listen for and look at, and if you're interested in it, try it, and if not, that's fine too. But just ideas, and this is all about helping each other, helping people. And so if any of this stuff can help you, just try it and see what happens. I like to start the show with what I call the message of the day, the MOD. And it's a little quote that I find that kind of sets up the topic of the show. And since today's episode is about sensory deprivation, of course, today's quote is, "The sensory deprivation chamber has been the most important tool that I've ever used for developing my mind." And that's by Joe Rogan. And I feel that because I think that sensory deprivation could be the key to understanding our sixth sense. Now, what is sensory deprivation? Well, it's the initial removal or reduction of external stimuli like light, sound, and touch to heighten your awareness of the inner world. Now, at its core, it's about quieting the body so the spirit can speak. What happens to the mind? When the brain isn't constantly processing external input, it turns inwards. This can trigger altered states of consciousness, enhanced creativity, visions, inner voices, or archetypical experiences. Release of stored emotions, lucid dreaming, and astral awareness. Now, some people report having mystical experiences, while others simply feel deeply relaxed or introspective. Scientifically, sensory deprivation can boost theta brainwaves, the same brainwaves active in deep meditation, REM sleep, and trance. Now, how about sensory deprivation and witchcraft and magic? In the magic traditions, entering altered states is the key for astral travel or hedge writing, channeling deities, guides, or spirits, receiving visions or omens, deep shadow work, manifestation, and spell clarity. Sensory deprivation is more than just a mystical sounding buzzword. It's one of the oldest magical techniques in the world. From the vision quests of the shamans to the silent vigils of temple priestesses, witches and mystics have long known that when you quiet your outer senses, the inner senses awaken. In witchcraft, sensory deprivation can be used to enter trance states for divination and spirit work, deepen visualization for spellcasting, enhance astral travel and past life journeys, receive visions, omens, or messages from guides and deities. By cutting out the external noise, you allow the subtle to rise. That could be your intuition, your inner child, or a message from the spirit world. Now here's an important safety note. Always ensure that you're in a safe environment. Have a trusted person nearby if you're doing long-term deprivations. Start with short sessions and work up to the longer ones. Now, some of these methods can bring up strong emotions or visions, so be prepared to ground afterwards. The path of isolation is not for everyone. Listen to your body and do not force yourself. Here are some witchy ways to practice sensory deprivation. You don't need a float tank. You can try some of these at home. Some people may feel anxious in sensory deprivation, so go slowly. Always have a grounding practice ready, like touching a crystal, eat something earthy, or breathe deeply. Also, keep a journal nearby. The insights can be powerful. The sensory deprivation isn't about cutting off the world. It's about tuning in to the voice inside the silence, to the rhythm beneath your skin, to the part of you that remembers the dark and sacred, not scary. In the absence of noise, the soul speaks. So close your eyes, turn off the lights, and let yourself drift. The idea of isolation tanks is you're suspended in warm salt water in total darkness and silence. It reduces body awareness by removing the effects of gravity. How to use a float tank: float face up in a pool, lake, or a float tank with eyes closed and ears submerged. A magical tip is perfect for water magic, mermaid meditation, or connecting with moon energy. Now, a lot of people have had these meditation float tanks. There's some you can look up in your town. They're like these spas that you can go to and you can rent and do an hour of float tank. And these things, they started out as kind of being for healing, like athletes. So like when athletes get hurt, like hurt a leg or arm, they would float in these float tanks. And to me, what it reminds me of being in the womb. And it kind of has that healing power of you don't know what's up, down, left, right. You're just suspended. And over time, people, not only necessarily the healing benefits of floating and having no gravity on your body, and we have the healing benefits of that, but also people have reported after doing it for an hour, people have reported just having that inner monologue with themselves or talking to themselves, or sometimes people say talking to other entities through this type of floating, this meditation in the float tanks. Another ways that we could use it, not just float tanks. Let's talk about blindfolds or blackout masks. The blindfold ritual, what it does, it removes sight, sharpening hearing, smell, touch, and psychic perception. How to use it: sit in a safe, quiet space. Blindfold yourself and hold your ritual tool, crystal, or charm. Let visions and sensations rise naturally. For a magical tip, use during moon rituals to see the moon's energy without physically looking at it. You can also use earplugs or white noise. We call it the silence spell. What it does, it cuts off sound, creating psychic stillness. How to use it: use earplugs or noise-canceling headphones. Perform meditations, healing energies, or scrying in the silence. For a magical tip, silence before divination can help you hear spirit whispers more clearly. We also have the dark room meditation. We call it the dark room retreat. What it does, it immerses you in total darkness, which can trigger dream-like visions. How to use it. Sit in a completely dark room or a blackout tent. You can begin breath work or chant softly to guide the mind inward. For a magical tip, bring your book of shadows and write down visions immediately afterwards. And there's this guy, I forget where it is, but there's people that make these rooms, these soundproof rooms, and they call them the 0 decimal rooms. And what they do is they do all that. It's dark, they cut down the sound, and you can't see. And people have reported hearing like their blood pumping through their body. And in these rooms, it's kind of scary because there's people that cannot stay in there. I think the longest person stayed in there maybe an hour before freaking out. But these rooms, they block off all the senses. And the experiences people have and just the idea of cutting all your senses off, what would that do to you? So it's important we stay safe and only do these things if you're ready for them. But these rooms, these 0 decimal rooms sound really interesting to me. Okay, other ways we can do what we call solitude rituals, like no phone, no speaking, and low light. We could do the fasting focus. What it does is it reduces taste and smell input, redirecting energy towards psychic work. How to use it. Short, intentional fast before ritual or spell casting. Now always stay hydrated. For a magical tip, it's best used with cleansing spells or spirit contact work. Another one that might not be for everybody is celibacy. Now restricting the use of sexual energy to gather the transmute sexual energy. Celibacy is still practiced by nuns, monks, and other priests to this day. Now, here's a inner sight ritual. Its purpose is to awaken psychic vision. Sit in a quiet place, blindfolded and in darkness. Hold your quartz crystal, amethyst, or any crystal you desire to your third eye. Breathe deeply for 13 cycles. Visualize a door opening in your mind's eye. Step through and see what images come. Record your vision in the book of shadows. When we step away from the noise of the world, the constant buzz of sight, sound, and sensation, we enter a timeless space where magic has always lived. And sensory deprivation isn't about losing your senses. It's about discovering the deeper ones that have been waiting all along. Now, as always with any of these things, like I said, please find a place where you won't be disturbed, a nice, place where you're comfortable, no meditations while driving and all that. And, just try out these things. Let me know what you guys think. If you are trying any of these, if you get any kind of results, let me know. And if you have any other ways of sensory deprivation also, to let me know in the comments. And there's other ways too. There's the old way, the original way that I was taught, that I remember in a book. It's in the book by Raymond Buckland, The Complete Book of Witchcraft. And in this book, he talks about how back in the day, the way the witches would do this without a float tank was they would do this thing, and they call it the witch's cradle. Now, the witch's cradle is a tool used by ancients to reduce the other sensations for the sensory deprivation. And what they would do is they would shroud you, and they would put cotton balls in your ears so you can't see or hear. Then they would tie you to a board or some sort of flat surface, and then they would suspend you from a hook, a swinging hook that is free flowing. And what that does is that you can't hear and you can't see, and you're suspended. You kind of lose sight of, after a while you lose sight of where you are, like up, down, left, right, where you are in the world. And what that does is that creates the sensory deprivation and ways for you to communicate with spirit or communicate with your inner voice. Now, the opposite of sensory deprivation is fear. Now, fear is the shadow of the isolation. Fear can be an excellent teacher because it gives you new ways to build yourself back up again. Facing your fears can lead to new ways of life. If you're interested in the path of isolation, seek out a teacher or a mentor to help you along the path. Remember, guys, we don't have to do all this stuff alone. We can help each other out. And, like I said, I want to know, is there any other ways you guys do sensory deprivation? Is there any other stories that you guys have heard that helps you, kind of reminds you of this sensory deprivation? And it's important that we try these things to test out to see, and basically in order to improve our sixth sense. They call it the sixth sense. But I believe that we all, they kind of lumped the sixth sense into one sense. But I believe that we all have 10 senses. We have our normal senses, the touch, taste, smell, hearing, and seeing. But we also have the psychic versions of those. So you have psychic hearing. That's hearing a ghost or hearing the dead. You have psychic sight. That's seeing, in your mind's eye, or seeing. Some people have visions. You have psychic touch. That's being touched by a ghost. You have psychic smell, and that's like some people will talk about how they smell like their grandpa's cigar or their grandmother's perfume and have that feeling of being visited by a loved one that has passed. So you have the psychic smell. And then the psychic taste, I don't really know anything about that one, but I feel like we do have 10 senses. We have our regular senses, and then we have the 5 psychic senses. And what they've done in society is they've kind of lumped it all down into one. They call it the sixth sense. But I believe that it's all of our senses kind of amplified by the psychic power that you put off. And so if you can, and certain people have heightened senses to different one. Like some people will hear ghosts more than see them, or some people will have that, like I said, that smell more than just feelings. So like having the feeling, that kind of goes off of psychic touch. And so I kind of feel like that's important that we talk about that, about how we have 10 senses and how the other senses are always there. We just don't always use them. And you have things like your intuition, your gut feeling. That's kind of all of it kind of in one. And so what this is about is that this whole thing is about shutting down your 5 physical senses so that your psychic senses can be, you can work them out kind of and test them and see if you can get any results and what's going on there. And the whole point of all this is just to be better persons, be better, live a magical life, and seek out these unexplained, the unseen world that we don't see. And just because we don't see it, feel it, hear it, or touch it, doesn't mean it's not there. And so it's kind of important that we talk about these things and we get an idea of there's something more out there than just what we can hear, touch, taste, see, and smell. There's a whole other world that we just are not able to tap into. And so by shutting off our psychic senses, our physical senses. We're letting our psychic senses roam and practice, and that's kind of what this is all about. It's all about just being better than yesterday. And I just want to thank you guys. This one was kind of a fun one. Just let me know what you guys think. If you have any ideas in the comments, if you guys do this, practice these techniques or try them, let me know if you have any results. But just talking about this stuff and just getting out there just to help people, like I said. And so we're running out of time. I want to thank you guys. So thank you for journeying with me through the Temple of the Owl, a KUAP digital broadcasting. It's the Troubled Minds Radio Network. This is Matt's Owl. Release the spirit of the owl. Until next time, keep your light steady, your spirit grounded, and your energy bright. Blessed be.
For many centuries, witchcraft has been considered evil, associated with the devil and all things dark. Let's break these stereotypes with your host, Matt Owl, of the Temple of the Owl. Let's talk about magic, of the old way to explore the many roles of the witch, learn the tools of the craft, the history of the science behind this ancient earth-based religion, on the Troubled Minds Radio Network KUAP Digital Broadcasting.
Thanks, Ron.